Okay, today we'll be solving the 2004 FRQ number 1. This is a little bit of monetary policy and aggregate supply and demand. So the first one says, using a correctly labeled aggregate demand supply graph, show the following. Full employment output. Okay, so that means we are a healthy economy. So we're going to start long run supply, short run supply, aggregate demand, real GDP, and they don't tell us what to label them as, so I'm just going to put it as YF, P, and price level. Okay, so there's our healthy economy right there. So we got full employment output, we got current output, and current price level all labeled. Now, identify an open market operation that could restore full employment in the short run. So for B, I know that if we buy bonds, it makes big bucks. So we want the Fed to buy bonds, and when we buy bonds, that's going to make the money supply increase, nominal interest rate will decrease, and investment will go up, so therefore GDP will go up. Okay, so that's all my explanation for that part right there. What they want to see is a graph. So in part C, what we need to do is draw the money supply graph. So we're going to have our vertical money supply because the Fed has an absolute monopoly over it. We're going to have money demand. We'll have the nominal interest rate. And we'll have our current interest rate right there. They tell us in it, a money market show open market operation identified in part B affects the interest rate in the short run. So we identified that buying bonds makes big bucks, so the money supply increases, and interest rates will decrease. But we need to show that on our graph. So we'll show money supply shifting to the right, and where it crosses money demand at our new point, we have a decrease in the nominal interest rate. So that is true, what we did right there. Now, explain how the change in interest rate you identified in part C will affect aggregate demand. So in part D, we kind of ran through our thought process right here, but I know that the decrease in interest rate is going to lead to an increase in investment and aggregate demand. So that leads to gross private investment going up, since that I is part of Sig X. What that's going to end up doing is that will increase aggregate demand. And what are they asking again? Will affect output and price level. So aggregate demand, remember that is GDP, that's output. So output is going to increase and price level is going to increase. I know this by doing this on my graph. So it says, show on the graph in part A how the change in interest rate identified in part C will affect output and price level. So they're asking us to make our shift. So aggregate demand increased, so I know that's going to make that shift to the right from AD to AD1, from P to P1, and now our new short run equilibrium is going to have us producing at this point right here. So output increased and price level increased. So I showed those in my graph. So that was part E, and we did that up there. So now we move on to part F. And part F has two parts. Okay. So instead of an open market operation in part B, suppose that no policy actions are taken to address the unemployment problem with flexible prices and wages. That is important. Explain how each of the following will eventually change. So they're asking about what's going to happen to short-run aggregate supply, output, and price level. So my first part is what happens to short-run aggregate supply. Well, short-run aggregate supply is going to increase in the economy. Okay. The reason that's going to happen is because during a recession, what will happen is if we have unemployment, so it says suppose instead of open market operation part B, suppose no policy actions are taken to address the unemployment problem. So if we have an unemployment problem, if there are flexible wages, that means unemployed people will settle for a lower wage and get back to work. Suppliers will take advantage of these low wages and increase their production. This is our classical economics. So what's going to happen is short run supply will go up, and it does say explain, so that means more points. So short run supply will go up because labor prices drop and supply can lower costs. Therefore, short run supply goes up. Alright, now they're asking what's going to happen to output and price level. So if we were to increase supply to the right, and what would that do to our graph? Well, if I don't know off the top of my head, I can draw a quick graph, but I know that short run supply is going to shift to the right, and that would make output increase, because think about it, if we're making more supply, we're making more stuff, output is going to increase, and price level is going to decrease, because there's no change in demand. Now, if there's no change in demand, then with more supply available, that drives prices down. Now, if you need to visualize this, imagine we're sitting here in a recession. We're producing at this point. You don't have to draw this graph, but I think the visual can help. So now I'm going to say short run supply is going to increase back to equilibrium. We have our rightward shift that puts us back there. You can see it, price level drops and output is going to increase. So you don't have to draw that, but I hope that helps. So we showed that output goes up, price level decreases.